Welcome back. This week on WeatherWise, Jackson Chastain tells us about the different types of fronts. Here's WeatherWise.
Meteorologist Jackson Chastain with the latest edition of WeatherWise. Meteorological spring is right around the corner. With that, you get lots of dynamic weather. Among that, you get fronts, you get cold fronts, warm fronts, occluded fronts, stationary fronts. You get the whole shebang right there. I'm going to talk about a few of those fronts today because you've all seen them on weather maps. You've seen the H's, you've seen the L's. You've seen the blue lines, you've seen the red lines with the associated symbols, but what do they mean? What do they do? Well, we're going to talk about cold fronts first, and that's the one with the triangle and the line, the blue, very typical blue line with the triangle that you see. And all that is, the best way to think about that is a cold mass of air, typically coming from Canada or somewhere further up north, makes its way down to the south. And what that does is, in addition to bringing cold, dry air into the region, kind of acts as a boundary. So if you have warmer and more moist air, it's also less dense. That will actually ride up on that front and then just kind of push its way upward because it has nowhere to go. The result there is you get thunderstorms, you get showers. It's also a great way to get some severe weather going because you basically get some artificial stimulation that gets those thunderstorms and those showers formed. And if you have long bands of thunderstorms along a line, along a lot of these cold fronts, that you end up with something called a squall line, which can bring tornadoes, strong winds, hail, can bring some heavy rain as well. So lots of hazards with cold fronts. They typically do bring the most severe weather out of all the different kinds of fronts, not necessarily making them the most important, but they are definitely a big factor when it comes to big systems moving into your area and delivering impacts. So cold fronts really deliver a lot of the weather that you like to think of: thunderstorms, rain, hail, tornadoes. But warm fronts also play a very critical role, especially when it comes to mid-latitude cyclones, and they kind of form that northern front with cold air to the north, warm air to the south. You got your low in the center, and your warm fronts typically have behind them that warm air is moist. So you can still get some showers, you can still get some storms. It still acts on the same principle, but the difference there is that it's not as intense. So you typically do have this kind of cold wedge of air off here in front of your warm front. When you have that warm air riding up, you do get clouds forming. You get showers. You sometimes get thunderstorms too. Not typically as intense as I mentioned, not really a generator of severe weather, not as much as the cold front is. What you do get though is you get lots and lots of different types of winter precipitation, especially if this cold layer is cold enough and it's deep enough. You get a great chance for some heavy snowfall, sleet, freezing rain. This is a lot of the hazards that you do get with a warm front. And if you've ever seen news coverage of a nor'easter, bomb cyclone, these are terms that they'll throw out with a mid-latitude cyclone. Typically it's the warm front that's delivering a lot of that snow and a lot of that ice. So you can get feet upon feet of snow from these warm fronts. They can also form thunderstorms too, but as I mentioned, not really the main purpose of the warm front, not really its specialty. Its specialty is going to be forming that winter precipitation and dropping lots and lots of snow. Now, that's all I have for today in the latest edition of WeatherWise. If you have questions, happy to take those on our email, Facebook, and Twitter. But other than that, you guys have a great night.
WeatherWise is brought to you by 4 County Electric Power Association.